Phil Stacey, Executive Sports Editor of the Salem News. I am alongside Assistant Sports Editor Matt Williams and Gloucester Times Sports Editor Nick Giannino for our weekly sports podcast. Gentlemen, what's going on?
How are we doing?
Good. Okay, we had a chance to run the first set of boys and girls soccer and field hockey leading scorers, leading goaltenders in the papers today, which is Thursday. And we're not quite at the end of the month. We're not quite at the halfway point of the regular season, but it's before we get the first set of MIA rankings. Most teams have played somewhere between, 6 and 8 games. Maybe Pingree is a little bit of an outlier on that. Maybe they haven't played as many, but most of our teams have. Willie, let me start with you. What kind of impressions do you get when you compile the leaders for girls soccer, where these teams are in the standings? Does anything jump out at you? Has anything surprised you? Give us your thoughts on the state of North Shore girls soccer.
I think the thing that stands out to me is really a few things. Business as usual at the top, right? I mean, Georgia Prouty, geez, I wish I could take a look. You see, like in college football, you got like, Georgia's spent 17 consecutive weeks at number one, right? I wonder how many consecutive weeks Georgia Prouty's been number one on this list. I mean, it's got to be going all the way back to her sophomore year when Ari Bezanson was still around. So that's the first thing. The next thing.
Not to interrupt you here, but having said that, based on the game you were at on Wednesday, it seemed like Peabody did a pretty good job marking her, or at least like limiting the impact she could have in that 1-1 tie.
I mean, a little bit. They had a lot of shots on frame. I mean, 19 saves is a lot of saves, right? So I don't know if I'd say they quite, marked her out. But, the thing with Georgia is she's such a distributor, right? She's not a classic striker. Her career breakdown goals and assists is almost 50-50, which is unusual for a player her caliber. She's going to break the Danvers high all-time assist record, in the next 2-3 weeks. So she can stretch the field horizontally just as well as she can vertically. The other thing I was going to say about these leaders is Peabody's got 2 kids in the top 10. That has not been the case for several seasons. They are a team that has struggled to score the last 2-3 seasons, and they're starting to put some balls away right now. And the way they defend, that makes them pretty dangerous, I would say. So if that trend continues, they're a team that's going to threaten. And the other thing that stands out to me is the shutout leader, Clara Castro of Beverly. Not maybe the kid that you would have expected to be at the top of that list coming into the season. Now, a great keeper in her own right, but Beverly, a relatively young-ish team, a lot of juniors, so you wouldn't have figured them for that many shutouts. They've hung 3 consecutive shutouts. They're 4-2-3. Now 2 of those were scoreless ties, so obviously you want to get some wins in there. But a 4-0 shutout of Bishop Fenwick the other day is a great win for Beverly and a great way for them to kind of go into the second, third of this season. So for my money. I think you expected Danvers and Masco to be near the top.
Yeah.
I think Peabody and Beverly are a little bit better equipped to compete right now than I expected. And that's, hey, when those big 4 are all cooking, that's really good for the North Shore soccer scene.
Nick, let's pivot to you on the boys soccer scene. I know that while your primary duties, as most people know by now, are down on Cape Ann, you still keep a really good eye on everything that's happening on the pitch as far as boys soccer, on the North Shore. Same question to you. What trends are you seeing among the top scorers, top goalies, top teams? We've had some interesting scores recently with Salem beating Masconomet, Marblehead tying Masconomet. I guess that's not as surprising, but what have you been seeing? St. John's Prep undefeated, probably ranked top 2 in the state?
Should be number 1, I would think. I haven't seen them. I mean, obviously the MIAA rankings aren't out, but yeah, I'm fortunate enough to have a good relationship with a lot of these North Shore soccer coaches, just having covered them over the years. So I've still been in relatively close contact with a lot of them and kind of seeing the trends early on in the season here. And I think a couple of things stand out to me. One, yeah, St. John's Prep undefeated, and I believe they have 5 shutouts. Matt Dragaitis in net with 5 shutouts there. They're winning a lot of games, 1-0, 2-0. So competitive games, but that's good to see that they're coming out on top in those close games.
And it seems like they're winning a lot of them late too. It's not like they're scoring 10 minutes in and then holding teams off. It's like,
yeah,
these games are a battle for 60, 65, 70 minutes before they're scoring. And then they get that huge goal and then hold the team off.
Absolutely. So like we said, they're undefeated, but most of their games have been really competitive. And that's a credit to their defense for keeping them in games and their offense capitalizing towards the end. I think they got a balanced attack. I mean, if you look at the leaders, how many St. John's Prep guys are in the points? I'm looking at 0 in the top 18. So they got a lot of guys with 1 or 2 goals, a lot of guys with a few assists. They're spreading the wealth. They don't have really that one gunner like they've had in the past, but they got a really good defense. They got a lot of seniors. They got a good goalkeeper in Dragaitis. They've been really fortunate to have a lot of good goalkeepers in recent years, and Dragaitis has some experience obviously back there. So impressive start for them. And then just as a whole, it's no coincidence that the top teams or the teams with the best record have the guys with the most points outside of St. John's Prep. You got Manchester Essex, who's off to a fantastic start. 6 wins already this year. They had 4 wins all of last year, bringing back most of their team. And Sammy Bothwell, who anyone I talk to, he's just really, really tough guard. He's been scoring a ton. He's got 12 goals already, 4 more than anyone else, 15 points on the season. They got 6 wins, like I said. Then you got Masconomet, who's we've talked about right at the top of the NEC standings once again. Had another battle with Marblehead the other day, 2-2 draw. But you got Jack Fielder up at the top with 9 points. Hamilton Wenham's having another strong season in the Cape Ann League. Nick Stein, he's a guy to watch for them. He had a terrific year last year, and he's got 9 points already. So, and then Marblehead, obviously, Elon Drucker with 9 points leading the way for them, but they also have a balanced attack. So yeah, I think it's no coincidence that these top teams, these teams with the best records so far, have some guys towards the top of the leaderboard.
Phil, what do you see on the field hockey side of things? I mean, I know it looks to me from the outside looking in, massive improvements, just like we were talking about on the girls soccer side from Peabody and Beverly. Yeah. Beverly at the top of the table, and then Peabody, hovering around 500. But for a program that lost a lot of games and lost a lot of games by big scores, they're getting some results. Not just against teams that you schedule to sort of build your program, but against some NEC teams, which to me is really eye opening.
Yeah, no, I mean, that win they had over Swampscott earlier this week, 3-2, was the first time they beat them in I don't know how long, pre-pandemic. I'm guessing. I haven't looked it up, but I know they haven't in the last 3 or 4 years. And you got to remember, this is a team that lost 9-1 on opening day, so they've really pulled it together. They've won 2 straight games. Daniela White, who's a senior captain, has taken the goal scoring mantle upon her shoulders. Another captain, Amelia DiBattista, has played very, very well for them. Chris Troncoso, a junior, has contributed offensively the last 2 games. Elizabeth Moore, she's a sophomore. She's done very, very well. The third captain is Kate Bresnahan, who also is playing very well. And the goaltender, another sophomore, Sophia Cassis. She's close to 100 saves this season. She's got a pair of shutouts already. And Jillian Tobin knows her stuff. She's been coaching for 16, 17 years, even though she's only in her 30s. She lives and breathes the sport. And I think she's got the right attitude and approach with this team as they look to just continually improve and get better. I mean, the wins are great. I'm not saying they're not. They love these wins, but it's more about constant improvement, working on skills, and functioning as a team. And you can see from the first game that I saw to where we're at currently, they've come miles already in a short amount of time. Beverly, as you mentioned, they hit their first speed bump the other day. They lost on a 4th quarter goal to Masconomet, 2-1. That was their first loss. But they're playing great this season. They're 6-1 under a new head coach, Danielle Hartford. But Danielle's been involved in the program, the middle school program, JV coach, the last few years. So she's certainly familiar with a lot of these goals. Ava Cannon's having a great year. 3 goals coming into her senior year. She's got 11 already, including a pair of hat tricks. She's been a revelation for Beverly. Fiona Bazin is a sophomore, her sister. Mia is one of the captains, but Fiona's got 4 goals this year. Morgan Linsky, a junior who you know through hockey, has 4 goals this year. A lot of spread out scoring for Beverly. Elliot Lund, the team's other captain. Juliana O'Connor. Avery LeBlanc, freshman. She scored in the game against Masco the other day, and she's been tremendous defensively. Mary Kapnis is doing a lot of scoring. Charlotte Stevens is taking over for her graduated sister. She's played very, very well. The defense has really played well. I think they're averaging only about 3 shots allowed per game. So yes, those 2 are both surprising. Essex Tech with a nice win over Ipswich the other day. They're growing as a program, and that's a victory for them over an established team. They're doing well, and we have to mention Masco. You know, they lost an opening day to Malden Catholic, but they've reeled off 7 straight wins, including Beverly and Swampscott back-to-back days, 2 conference toughies. And, they also are getting lots of scoring, particularly from the 2 Mias, Captain Mia Giuliano and Mia Marks, the sophomore. So it should be a really interesting second half.
Staying on the field hockey, just real quick, interesting note from Gloucester the other day. Head coach Lauren Riley Gove tells me that Keegan Jewell broke the career shutout record for goalies for the program.
Nice.
31 shutouts now in her career. She's got 5 already this season. And that's a really young Gloucester team, not a lot of seniors. I know
they graduated 10 starters out of 11. That's crazy.
I think got a couple seniors on the team. She had a lot of question marks coming into the year, but they're performing pretty well, over 500 right now. And a lot of that goes to, Keegan Jewell and net. She's been terrific.
And obviously, Manchester Essex, as you would expect from Cape Ann, playing very, very well with Abby Kent, leading the area in scoring with 12 points. And Bridget Caravillano in net, I think has 5 or 6 shutouts already too. So.
Yeah, they're off to a great start as well. And you'll notice with Kent, a lot of it's assists. 8 assists on the year. She's kind of running the show from that midfield, and Division I prospect, I believe, Abby Kent.
Yeah.
So she's off to a great start.
Nick, but before we get into the football, guys, I just wanted to touch with you too on the golf, because that is the shortest of the seasons that we have in the fall. It won't be long before these guys are going to North Sectionals. I should say guys and girls. We certainly have some females playing this fall. But I'm seeing that it's not a surprise that St. John's Prep is playing well. They obviously are. They're getting some great play. What it's really looking to be a great 3-team battle, Nick, in the Northeastern Conference between Marblehead, Beverly, and Masconomet. I think they're all within like a match or 2 of each other, just playing really, really well. Have you been able to kind of keep eyes on that and see what's going on?
A little bit, sure. I think the NEC has been very competitive as a whole, and those 3 teams are definitely the 3 teams to beat. I have noticed Marblehead has gotten a lot of wins over those teams, and then the second time around, when they see them again, the matches are closer. So it seems like Marblehead's the team that other opponents are gunning for. And just as a whole, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but a lot of balance on these golf teams. A lot of kids are coming out for golf. There's a lot of low scores. Kids are going under par with more regularity than I think I've ever seen being on the beat. And that's not to say it's happening often, but, one guy here, one guy there, going under and shooting under par, which is very impressive for 9 holes. So it's going to be interesting coming down the stretch. I think a lot of these NEC teams are going to get into the state tournament coming up soon. I know Gloucester just qualified, and they're probably in the middle of the pack, or upper pack, I should say, in the NEC, but they're not one of those teams to beat, I wouldn't say. They're a little bit younger, and so they qualified, and Marblehead, Masco, Beverly, all those teams are going to be in the mix come state tournament time as well. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on the golf. It's like you said, it's coming down the home stretch. They only play 18 matches. I think most teams have played at least 12.
Yeah.
So a couple more weeks.
And We have, as we do with many of our coaches in all seasons, we have great relationships with a lot of the golf coaches. Guys you didn't, teams you didn't mention, like, Billy Corley at Hamilton Wenham and Guardio Flynn in Ipswich and so on and so on. I want to throw a shout out, and you guys know this because you're on the same text chain that I am with him. Tommy Doyle, the Salem High coach. Most people know him as the basketball coach there. He also coaches the golf team, obviously, which is why I'm bringing this up.
And they got the Jordan. They got the Jordan sponsor for the.
Yeah,
they're rocking all the Jordan golf gear. You'll have to see that, bringing the crossover.
That's
with
true. This is not a year where the Witches are going to win a lot of matches, but I love that Tommy, win or lose, and no matter what the deficit is or whatnot, Tommy reports the scores to us faithfully and always manages to mention, some kids who shot well. And I think, and in fact, when I saw him last week, I told him this. I said, I wish all of our coaches, and a lot of them do, but not everybody, unfortunately, but I wish that everybody had the same mindset he did, in that, win or lose, there's always somebody who played well, or there's somebody worth mentioning, or there's somebody improving. There's somebody's grandmother who's looking for that person's name in the paper or whatnot. They send a link out to their colleagues or friends or people out of state or whatever, like, oh, see, so-and-so got in the paper, whatever, that kind of thing. Tommy gets it. And maybe it's because he's a long time, North Shore guy, Salem born and bred, and he's always read the paper and whatnot. But Tommy's a good model for the other coaches to follow. So I just wanted to make sure we shouted him out and said thank you for always taking care of your kids and your program and making sure that they're represented. Okay, let's move on to the gridiron. We are 3 weeks into the season. Willie, could we say, I think, that maybe the biggest surprise, the biggest surprise team, and it shouldn't be totally surprising, but the biggest surprise team so far has been Masco. Now, I ask you this because I know you're going to the game this Friday, their game against Winchester. I looked up the last time they won all of their September games. So they won 4 games in September. It's been 17 years since they've done that. Back when Jimmy Pugh was running the show, and they had a plethora of a great run there for a long time. But we're talking 2007 for the last time they went 4-0. In fact, I think they went 7 or 8-0 to start that season. That was the year that they, the state playoffs were obviously different then. And I want to say they played, I know they played Gloucester. I'm not sure if it was up at Collie and Lowell, or maybe one of those games when they used to do doubleheaders, those Tuesday doubleheaders in Lynn. And they might have played then. And Gloucester had that remarkable team that crushed them and Hingham in the playoffs to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. But it's been a long time since Masco has started off this well. So again, biggest surprise so far of the year?
Yeah, again, I'm not sure, they play such a different schedule many of those years, but, the win over Billerica is probably the most surprising result of the season thus far for a single game, right? Wouldn't say I'm surprised they won the other 2. And we'll see what happens against a half-decent Winchester team that's really well coached. So, but it makes it a race, right? And that, I think, is good for the conference. It's good for the North Shore. Let's face it, when Masco is good, it's good for the league. We've seen it in field hockey. We've seen it in girls soccer. We've seen it in boys soccer. We've seen it in baseball. We've seen it a little bit in boys lacrosse. We've seen it in girls lacrosse. When Masco is good, it brings out the best of the competition and everybody else. And I think this is great. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's only September. The intermingling games don't start until next week. But I look at Masco, I look at Peabody, I look at Marblehead, and I throw Danvers in that pie. And I think these are all teams that are all good, but all flawed. They're all going to have to show, if any one of them shows up and has a sloppy game or doesn't come to play, they're capable of losing to any one of the other three, right? And so that makes for good football. That makes for compelling stories. I don't think any one of those four teams is going to be able to run the table, win all five of its league games by 2 touchdowns, and cruise into the playoffs. And so, number one, as reporters, as newspaper people, as storytellers, I think that's great for the fans. And I think for the teams, you hope that even though it's maybe not great for the power rankings that you're not winning by 14 points, you hope that being tested against one another, right? Iron sharpens iron. Now, maybe these teams aren't quite iron in the way that, St. John's Prep and Catholic Memorial are, but you hope that being in the fire steals all four of those teams and that they're all much better for it. When it comes playoff time.
Okay, so we got a few questions here. We got Marblehead picking up their first win. And I'm guessing, based on the score, that Shepherd Hill was not at the Bishop Fenwick King Philip level that Marblehead faced the first 2 seasons. So we kind of don't know what Marblehead is yet. Good test for them this Friday night at North Andover. Danvers has lost 2 straight, but they've lost to Tewksbury and Reading. I think they're better, even though they're very young and they're still working out kinks and whatnot. I think they're better than their 1-2 record would say. Peabody, coming off their first conference loss in 3 years, or first regular season loss, I should say, in 3 years. Took it on the chin score-wise. You said that the 2 kickoff returns by Swampscott maybe, I don't want to say inflated that score, but made it look worse than it was. So, but clearly they have some things to work out. I don't even think Beverly is as bad as the 1-2 record and back-to-back losses might show, because they're just so banged up at this point. It's not an excuse. This is the reality. I know everybody has players injured, but do you already, before September's even out, have to go to your 4th or 5th string running back, or your 3rd string right guard, or 5 of the 7 guys that play in the secondary in a particular game weren't even ticketed to play there at the start of the season? So, if they can get some of these guys back, I'm not saying that they're going to win the league, but I think that they could make a little bit of noise and cause some commotion in those league games, at least some of them. I'm curious to know your thoughts on those topics.
I think it's possible. I think the other 4 teams are kind of head and shoulders above them. The other thing I look at is the Lynch, right? And to me, Swampscott has taken a little bit of a step, but I also look at Salem. I think Salem's better than I expected them to be, and I think that's going to be a race. And I think Masco is more surprising, and I think that Billerica win is singularly the most surprising game of the season thus far. But I would say on a big picture level, the fact that I think that's going to be a race, and I think that Salem Swampscott game could be one of the best conference games of the season, that's a little bit of a surprise to me at this point in the calendar as well. I am impressed with what Salem has been able to do. I am impressed with the way that Andreas Bernal has thrown the football down the field. I am impressed with their secondary weapons on the perimeter. We all knew they had Rocco Ryan back, and right. You look at the team, and it is not Rocco Ryan and the Seven Dwarfs. That they have got some real dudes around him in Elvis Espinal, Mikey Curtin, and Oscar Fernandez. I mean, they are a very challenging team, and I'm not sure that I expected that. I probably should have, right? I mean, you saw them light it up in the 7-on-7. Yeah. I guess I just kind of forgot about that, and I look at that as a really exciting. I mean, I got that Salem Swampscott game circled. That's going to be an old school throwback NEC showdown. I mean, when was the last time those 2 programs played a championship game like that? That takes me back to like Billy Bush and Ken Perrone. I mean,
I was going to say, honestly, it's probably like 1994, that Salem Teachers Strike game. I believe.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Geez, I'm dating myself. That was 30 years ago. But were both teams undefeated, or maybe Salem had a loss, or Swampscott had a loss? And I want to say that was a 16-6 game. But what makes that even more intriguing, Willie, is that game isn't until the final weekend of the regular season. That's November 1st.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of football to be played between now and then. And Nick, let's bring you into that conversation. Gloucester hosts Salem next week, but they go to, was it St. Bernard this weekend?
Correct.
What's your take on Gloucester through 3 games here? I mean, lost to Beverly on opening day, and then from there, they've picked it up a little bit.
Yeah, well, they're coming off a bye week. They
Right.
had an early bye. Good performance against Somerville. Really slow start in that game. They got tackled for a safety on one of the opening drives. So they were down 2-0 for a while, but they got it. They figured it out a little bit, got the offense going. I think just speaking with head coach Dan O'Connor, he's encouraged by the improvements from week to week from that Beverly game into the Somerville game. And now they've had a bye week to kind of get healthy. They got a lot of guys banged up. They had an illness going through the locker room that kind of had some guys out. So I think the bye week, while sometimes you don't always want it that early, the mandatory bye weeks this year, it worked out well timing wise for them because they had a lot of guys out. But yeah, they're running that. They're committed to that wing T offense. They're spreading the wealth with a bunch of different backs who kind of have different skill sets. I really had a lot of fun watching this kid Jalen Severino run the ball. He's got this extra burst of speed that not many guys have around here, but he's tall. And talking to O'Connor, he kind of builds his speed as he goes. So if they can get him outside and get him in some space, he's hard to bring down. Hard for teams to kind of cut off his angle there. And then you got Cribbs, who just runs like a bulldog. Thomas Cribbs, he had a huge run against Somerville where he took a whole pile into the end zone from about 5 or 6 yards out. And then a couple other guys chipping in, Joe Allen, Nico Alves, a couple other guys as well. So they're going to rely on the run. Cameron Rodolosi, their quarterback, has been running the offense well, hasn't been asked to throw it too much, but hasn't been turning it over. And I think the biggest question mark going into the season and still to this day has been their line, because they're definitely a little undersized. You saw that against Beverly. They gave up some size there. They're going to give up size in most games. But that left side has been doing a good job. They've had some success over there, and the kids are working hard on technique. And it's not to say they're not strong and don't know what they're doing. They're just giving up some size sometimes, and that can be a factor. So they need that line to play well because they run the ball so much. And we'll see as the season goes on. They're going to get into the meat of their NEC schedule, like you said, with a tough one coming up against Salem next week. And St. Bernard's will be a good test for them. They had a 7-6 game with St. Bernard's last year at home, in which they won. And that's a team that also runs a wing T style offense and has a big fullback that can really ground and pound it. So could be another close one there up in or out in Fitchburg.
All right, Willie, I want you to do a couple quick hits here. Very quick thoughts on 3 topics before football-related topics. Before you do, I just want to offer a quick take of my own on Essex Tech. Was at practice yesterday. Really impressed in the year-over-year improvement I saw when I was at practice last year. They seem much more cohesive. I think they're doing a really nice job running that triple option that they run. I think that's what it's going to take for them to be successful at this level. They get a big game with Newburyport this week, traditionally a very strong team. Have yet to taste victory this season, but they're favored over the Hawks Friday night. So it's a big test for Essex Tech. I think given their strength of schedule and the fact they play Division IV, they probably need to go like 6-2 to make the playoffs. And even then it would be like a division number 15 or 16 seed. So at 1-1, it's a big game for them, but I think they've really done a nice job as they continue to try and ascend up the football ladder. Willie, I want to ask you a quick thought on Dave Woods winning his 200th game last week at Fenwick. You were there for that one.
Yeah, just a cool atmosphere. I mean, it's incredible, the way that they've been able to really sustain. I mean, they had maybe a little bit of a dip like in 2009 maybe, but really reinvented themselves, keep getting good players in. They got a lot of guys that look like clones of one another, that play hard, that they have all these kind of stout running back, linebacker types. Always seem to have a good quarterback, never seem to miss a beat. And I mean, that's just a sign of great coaching Dave is prepared. Dave is meticulous. Dave doesn't let any details slip by him, but he is also super caring and, really takes care of his players, very loyal guy and just, remarkable to have, the sustained success. I mean, to be able to stay in one place for so many years is just not something you see anymore. And so, that's really cool. And it's nice to have that sort of that sort of stability, right? I mean, it just breeds success, and it just is contagious.
200 wins
Quickly
in how
on
many years, Willie?
26, 24, something like that.
That's pretty good. No.
thoughts on Pingree and Pat Downey and his staff picking up a win in their first game running the Highlanders.
So that's interesting, right? You go down to Peabody, you see a guy win his 200th game, stop home, have a little snack, hitch over to South Hamilton, see a guy win his first game, right? So it's funny how this life we've chosen, right? The duality of man, if you will, makes you sit and reflect. But hey, Pingree looked a lot like the old Pingree, very tough, tight game, a lot of skill. You could throw the Clemson logo on the helmets, and it's going to look a lot like the Beverly Morency offense. So that was kind of cool to see the men in motion, the tight ends, the snaps under center. Jack Spear looks very comfortable taking those snaps. Play action, rocking and rolling. Jonah Richardson picking right off where his brother Jalen left off. He had 4 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cole Piasinski is a Swiss Army knife. Almost like a Christian McCaffrey type that can catch the ball. Austin Eckler, take your pick. They were down 7-0, moved them to running back from the slot. He carried the ball, I think, 5 times on an 8-play drive to help get the game tied. 186 yards from scrimmage. So he's going to be a big time guy to watch. And with the rain, they really weren't able to get that passing game going. I think there were only 3 or 4 kids that touched the ball on offense. So they're a team that's got a lot of guys that are capable of doing a lot of damage. And I think as they get into better weather and other parts of their schedule, you're going to see a lot more kids get involved. And that's going to be very dangerous for their opponents. But certainly in this one, the Coltrane was going full steam ahead.
All right, 60 seconds or less. Tell me, Willie, your thoughts about the new proposals, alignment proposals for 2025, 26, and 26, 27.
Oh, I just looked at it real quick. I mean, I see Catholic Memorial in Division 3, and we all know that's a joke. They belong in Division 1. Maybe they'll get appealed up to Division 2. They say you can't appeal up 2 divisions. I mean, when is the MIA going to learn their lesson on this? People say, when are you going to stop complaining about it? But I got to be honest with you. People don't know that this stuff is posted. There are athletic directors in the state that don't know that the deadline to appeal is in 5 days, October 1st. So that's why people like me and, the media, we have to post this stuff so that people are smart enough to go on the website and read it and talk about it, because that's the only way it's going to change. And so that's why I posted that, because, this stuff is publicly available. They're not trying to hide it. But if nobody looks at it, nobody talks about it, that's how it flies under the radar. So I'd encourage all the ADs to go on there, look at it, make sure your school is where it belongs. Didn't look like there were a lot of changes for our local schools, Prep, Peabody, Beverly, Masco, Marblehead, all about where they normally are. Danvers might have gone up from 5 to 4, but other than that, the status was quo football-wise.
I would argue that Beverly should be a Division 3 school.
I'd have to look at the population. You might be right.
Just not a Division 2 participant, but
I'd have to look at the numbers, but I tend to agree. I mean, Masconomet and Marblehead are both in D3. Beverly's pretty similarly sized to Masco, so it'd be hard to argue that.
All right. Hey, listen, want to wrap up today with something. I've seen this on several podcasts. I think it's pretty cool. I want to do a North
and
Shore.
I think you're going to think it's pretty cool.
I want to do blind rankings. And what we're going to do today is North Shore football venues, stadiums. So this is just based whatever your own personal criteria is. Whether it's the sight lines, whether it's the press box, whether it's ease of parking, whether it's concession food, whether it's how far you have to walk to get to the locker room, whether it's if I have to sit in the stands, how's the viewing experience, whatever you want it to be. So I'm just going to throw 5 stadiums at you guys. I want you to rank them blindly without knowing what's coming next. Okay. All right. So this is for both of you. I want to start with Bertram Field at Salem. Nick?
Put that smack dab in the middle, number 3.
Okay.
I like Bertram, but I have a couple others in mind that I put ahead of it. So I'm going to go 3.
All right. Willie?
So I just make up a number without knowing who's next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go 2. I like Bertram.
Okay. I don't love that we now are quite removed from the field. And of course, I remember the old Bertram where I felt like you didn't hang over it, but you had a pretty good view of the field. Now I feel like the press box is pushed back, and that's one of the few venues that I don't walk the fields usually. So I usually sit upstairs, and I like it, but it's a great venue, but it's tough to see some of those players on the far sideline. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know.
No, I agree.
All right. So Willie with a 2 and Nick with a 3. All right. All right. Newell Stadium in Gloucester. Nick?
I like Newell. I'm gonna go 2.
2. Okay. What do you like about it?
I like that it's on the water. It's always the wind is always a factor there. It's always going to be a little bit colder, which I'll sit in the press box. But yeah, good amount of seats there. Everywhere's a good view, and just unique with it being right on the water.
Willie?
I'll put it 4. I mean, whatever. It's kind of cookie cutter. I don't like driving up there, but I mean, the sidelines are kind of the same as everything else. So I'll throw it down at number 4.
Hey, to the river, my friend. To the river. All right. Jack Welch Stadium in Ipswich. Nick?
Jack Welch, huh? Well, there's not a lot of seats there. The press box is kind of old, but they do have a great PA announcer. Who's the guy that does the PA there?
I think it's
doing
changed,
it forever.
but I know who you mean.
I can't think of the guy's name, and that's going to drive me nuts.
His name too, yeah.
Nice guy. Anyway, Jack Welch, a good scoreboard. Concessions are at the end. I'm going to go 4 on that one.
All right. Willie?
I guess put them at 3. I mean, it's all right. But there might be one that's worse coming, I guess. Like, but I could take it or leave it. I mean, it's okay.
Okay.
I agree.
Piper Field in Marblehead.
I'm going 5 for Piper. No real press box. It's always a crunch up there. Love the guys. Love the program. Seating's okay. They don't let us walk the sideline anymore. That hasn't been an issue for me, but I know that's going to be an issue for some of you guys. Always colder there. I'm going 5.
Right, Willie?
Yeah, I mean, I have 1 and 5 left, and it's definitely not my favorite, so I'll put it at 5. I mean, I think I would have it ahead of Ipswich and Gloucester, but it's too late, right? That's part of the fun of this blind business. So
That's
yeah,
part
throw
of
it down
the
at 5
fun,
for,
yes.
for all the reasons Nick said.
Okay, so you both have number 1 left. Hurd Stadium in Beverly.
See, I knew this was coming. This is a trick.
I like Hurd.
What trick is there? Oh, hold on. What trick is there?
Well, number 1's the only one left. So now the headline's going to be, Williams ranks Hurd number 1. And it's like,
I didn't tell you how to rank these. Random names. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I like Hurd. I would have put him 1 or 2 anyway. I think there's a lot of history to that field. I like the grass surface. I like the people sitting on the hills and taking in the game, the old press box. I like it. The parking sucks. That's the only downfall.
Press box is actually terrible.
It's a terrible press box, but
it's a metal box.
Yeah, but it worked.
As we've mentioned on this podcast prior, that Thanksgiving a few years back when the temperature was 18 degrees and felt about 6, sitting in an essentially like a freezer was not fun. That was
I was in the old Hamilton Wenham press box that day, so it wasn't much better.
Okay.
you got to get out in the sun. I mean, that day you needed to feel the sun, and having a roof over your head on that day was bad news, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
in hindsight, you're right. What's ironic though about Hurd is they may not be playing another game there this year. If trenches are being dug as we speak and the stands are being assembled at Beverly High at 40 Field. So, I mean, their next home game isn't until October 19th against Masco. That could be moved to a Friday night or even a Thursday night, I'm hearing.
Yeah. So the only thing I don't like,
Which
and
I'm voting for the Thursday night, to be honest with you, because we get enough games that Friday.
right. Well, so I would say that the thing is, without the track there at Hurd Stadium, the fence is way too close to the sideline.
Yes.
So like when you try to walk,
that's true.
When the play goes beyond the 40s, when you try to walk behind the team, right? Because usually I'm walking the sidelines, I'll go behind the team,
yeah,
to try to get to the other side to see what's going on. The fence is so tight that you can't do it. And so I end up walking all the way out to the numbers. I'm 10 yards onto the field, sprinting by the slot receiver, trying to get to the other side. And it's just not enough room. I mean, they got to get some width going at that place. I don't mind the grass. I like the grass. I don't mind the parking, because what you do is you just park at Cooney Field, the baseball field, and you're all set there. But I just don't like the way the fence is there. I always feel like I'm in somebody's way. And, the band is always in the way, like it's UCLA and Cal too.
It's funny you say that. VOP said to me last week, it's a wonder more people haven't gotten hurt on that fence, like tackled about this high and, just catch your collarbone or something like that. So it is interesting. But all right, so this is our first blind rankings. I liked how we did this. I'll have one of you come up with one for our next podcast, but let the world know Williams picks Hurd Stadium #1.
I'll come up with my own trick. I'll trick you into putting Derek Jeter will be #1 somehow.
There's no trick. So Willie went what? Hurd 1, Bertram 2, Jack Welch 3, Newell.
Johnny Robinson. We'll never hear the end of this.
And Piper 5, Nick, Hurd, Newell, Bertram, Jack Welch in Ipswich, and Piper 5th. All right. I like it. Sometimes these will work out. Sometimes they'll be a mess. It sounds like this was kind of a mess for you, Willie, but
I wouldn't say it's a mess. They're fun. I think it was fun.
It is. It's something different, and it will, most importantly, it will get people talking. So that's what we want. All right. Boys, as always, pleasure talking to you in general, but particularly when it comes to North Shore sports. I know you pour your hearts into what you do, and our readers and listeners or whatnot are very appreciative. So thank you. Where are you going to be this weekend, Nick? You going out to Fitchburg?
No, I don't think I'm going to make it over there. We got a photographer issue, so I'm going to help out our sister paper, Newburyport. I'm going to do the Manchester Essex Triton game.
Okay.
I'll catch Gloucester next week against Salem. Obviously, still have a story on that game. Speaking with Connor after, but. Yep, and be taking in the Hornets for the second weekend in a row. They're 2-0, taking on a tough Triton team, so it should be a good game.
And thanks for letting us borrow Tyler Rourke, his initial mention on the podcast here. Tyler's an Endicott student who helped Nick out during the summer. Did a football game for us last week. He covered Marblehead, did a nice job. We're going to give him another game this week. He's going to be at the Beverly Wakefield game. Willie, where are you going to be this weekend? Well, I know, but tell
all
people.
Over the place. I'll be at Masco.
From everywhere.
I'll be I'm everywhere. I got my phone up. I'll probably be chatting about 6 football games. So all my advanced scouting will be done. Looking forward to seeing St. John's in person on Saturday, even though I think they're going to blow LaSalle out of the water. It's always good to watch them play.
Mm-hmm. And you get, of course, that Masco game that we mentioned earlier at Winchester. I'll be going to Winthrop. Haven't been to Miller Field in a few years, but I'll be there to catch Danvers, see if they can snap a 2-game losing streak. And on Saturday, looking forward to seeing the number 9 in the country Endicott College football team as they take on RPI at home. So that should be interesting as well. All right. Nick Giannino, Matt Williams. I am Phil Stacey. Thanks as always for tuning in, listening to our podcast. We appreciate it. And we will see you out at the games.